What you're about to witness isn't just another Middle East incident. It's the moment everything changed in America's shadow war with Iran. For months, we've watched as Iran-backed militias launched over 150 attacks on U.S. forces, each dismissed as minor provocations that resulted in only traumatic brain injuries. But something fundamentally shifted on that January night at Tower 22. The line between harassment and warfare was crossed in blood. The lives of thousands of American troops stationed across the Middle East now hang in the balance of what happens next. Is this the catalyst that transforms a proxy conflict into direct military confrontation between the United States and Iran? What critical information about this attack is being deliberately withheld from public view? By the end of this video, you'll understand why this moment marks a point of no return, and why what happens next will reshape American foreign policy for decades to come. The pre-dawn silence at Tower 22 military outpost in northeastern Jordan was shattered without warning. As most soldiers slept in their barracks, a single drone, likely Iranian manufactured, slipped through advanced defense systems. U.S. officials later admitted a tragic coincidence. The enemy drone arrived precisely as an American surveillance drone was returning to base, creating fatal confusion that delayed defensive responses. The explosion tore through the sleeping quarters. In that instant, Sergeant William Jerome Rivers, 46, Specialist Kennedy Sanders, 24, and Specialist Brianna Moffitt, 23, all from Georgia, became the first American troops killed by enemy fire since the Gaza war began. 47 others lay wounded in the aftermath. The deadliest attack happened not in combat, but in sleep, when safety was presumed, when vulnerability was at its peak. Like a predator that strikes when its prey believes itself protected, the drone found the precise moment when defenses were at their weakest. But how did this single drone penetrate some of the most sophisticated air defense systems on the planet? What critical gap in American security did it exploit? And who else might be taking notes on this deadly success? There's a special kind of horror in losing comrades not during combat operations, but while they rested inside what should have been a protected perimeter. The psychological contract between a nation and its deployed soldiers is simple. You may face danger in your duties, but you'll be safe in your sanctuary. That contract was shattered along with the walls of Tower 22. The 3 soldiers killed weren't hardened special operators, but Army Reserve members. Everyday Americans with families, dreams, and futures. Rivers, a father. Sanders, studying to become an X-ray technician. Moffitt, aspiring to be a mortician while serving her country. Regular people whose flag-draped coffins President Biden would later receive at Dover Air Force Base in a solemn ceremony that plays out too often in America's endless wars. The vulnerability of sleeping targets. The expectation of protection shattered. The vulnerability of young lives ended while their guard was down. The vulnerability that now haunts every soldier trying to rest on bases across the region. What defines security when threats can slip through our most advanced defenses unseen? And after 150 previous attacks gradually escalating in intensity, why weren't these sleeping soldiers better protected? Tower 22 isn't just any military installation. Located near the Syria-Jordan border, it serves as a vital logistics hub for U.S. forces in Syria, particularly the nearby Al-Tanf garrison. Its strategic position makes it both essential and exposed. Since October 2023, following Hamas's attack on Israel and the subsequent Gaza war, Iran-backed militias across the region launched a coordinated campaign against American forces. Over 150 attacks using drones, rockets, and missiles struck U.S. positions in Iraq, Syria, and now Jordan. Most resulted in what officials clinically termed minor injuries, primarily traumatic brain injuries that were somehow deemed acceptable losses. The Islamic Resistance in Iraq, an umbrella organization for various Iran-backed groups, claimed responsibility for numerous attacks while Tehran maintained plausible deniability. The pattern was clear: gradually increasing pressure, testing American resolve with each assault, waiting to see where the true red line might be drawn. A war was being waged while we pretended we weren't at war. Each unchallenged attack emboldened the next. Each minor injury normalized further aggression until the inevitable line was crossed. Share. If you've noticed how we've become numb to minor casualties and endless conflicts, how we've accepted a constant state of not quite war that suddenly becomes all too real when lives are lost. But what was the real strategic objective behind this escalation? Was this attack meant to be different, or did it simply succeed where others had failed? The preliminary investigation revealed a stunning tactical failure. The hostile drone attacked around the same time an American surveillance drone was returning to base. This confluence created deadly confusion. Was it friendly or hostile? Delaying the response until it was too late. But this wasn't merely a tactical error. It exposed a strategic vulnerability in how American forces operate in hostile territory. This attack represents a calculated test of American resolve. Iran and its proxies have mastered the art of calibrated aggression, actions serious enough to cause pain, but theoretically remaining below below the threshold that would trigger full-scale retaliation. When previous attacks resulted in limited American responses, they gradually expanded the boundaries of what they could do without facing severe consequences. The regional context is critical, with Israel's war in Gaza igniting tensions across the Middle East, Houthi attacks on shipping in the Red Sea, and Hezbollah exchanges with Israel along the Lebanese border. Iran is orchestrating pressure across multiple fronts simultaneously. Each group maintains operational independence while serving Tehran's broader strategic objectives, creating plausible deniability while advancing Iranian interests. Military analysts describe this as a classic asymmetric approach. Iran cannot directly challenge American military supremacy, so it bleeds U.S. resources and resolved through sustained low-level attacks across a distributed network of proxies. Like a chess player sacrificing pawns to test their opponent's strategy, Iran watches American responses to calibrate its next moves. The most dangerous escalation isn't through open declaration, but through calculated ambiguity. Iran can deny direct involvement while continually raising the stakes. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps warned it would respond to any U.S. threat, while Iranian officials carefully stated that regional resistance factions do not receive orders from Iran, maintaining the fiction of separation while sending clear signals. Will America's response remain proportional as it has been, or will this crossing of a red line trigger a game-changing shift in strategy? The American response was swift but measured. U.S. forces conducted airstrikes against dozens of targets in Iraq and Syria, linked to Iran-backed militias and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. The strikes hit command centers, intelligence facilities, weapons storage sites, and logistical hubs, degrading capability without directly targeting Iranian soil. The ripple effects spread immediately. Iran-backed fighters in eastern Syria reportedly evacuated their positions, fearing further U.S. strikes. The careful calibration of America's response, significant enough to demonstrate resolve but restrained enough to avoid uncontrollable escalation, reflects the delicate balance being sought. Political pressure mounted instantly. Senator Lindsey Graham and other hawks called for strikes directly on Iranian targets, arguing that targeting proxies alone would fail to deter Tehran. "I am calling on the Biden administration to strike targets of significance inside Iran," Graham stated, reflecting a growing sentiment that the proxy game had reached its limits. When superpowers respond to provocations, it's rarely the provocateurs who suffer most. The consequences of escalation, the calculation of measured response, the consequences that ripple beyond intended targets. This pattern of escalation and response carries profound risks for regional stability. What long-term strategic shift does this attack represent? Has the era of accepting casualties as the cost of maintaining presence in the Middle East ended? Or is this simply another turn in an endless cycle of provocation and response? We've reached a critical threshold between proxy harassment and direct conflict. The deaths at Tower 22 have forced a recalibration of what constitutes acceptable risk for deployed American forces and how the United States responds to attacks attributed to Iran but carried out by its proxies. The Biden administration faces an impossible balancing act, responding forcefully enough to deter future attacks while avoiding actions that could trigger uncontrollable regional war. Enhancing base defenses, improving drone detection capabilities, and reconfiguring force posture may offer tactical improvements, but the strategic dilemma remains unresolved. Today's decisions echo through decades of future conflict or peace. The response to this attack will set precedents for how America engages with Iran and its network of proxies for years to come. Comment restraint if you believe the U.S. should limit its response to avoid regional war, or decisive if you think stronger action against Iran itself is needed to prevent further attacks on American forces. Subscribe to understand the forces shaping global conflict, while others remain fixated on headlines without context. Join a community that sees beyond superficial analysis to grasp the strategic currents reshaping international security. The technology behind these attacks deserves closer scrutiny. The drone that struck Tower 22 was likely an Iranian-made system, modified for extended range and enhanced explosive capacity. What makes these weapons particularly dangerous isn't their sophistication, but their simplicity. Affordable, adaptable platforms that can defeat billion-dollar defense systems. The most dangerous weapons aren't those with the biggest explosions, but those that blur the line between peace and war until it's too late to recognize which side of the line you're on.